Case file Roar. Status: open. Classification: cursed production. Every file has a story. Some should never be opened. Tonight, we're opening one anyway. What if the most dangerous movie ever made wasn't cursed by ghosts, demons, or unexplained tragedies, but by something far more terrifying? What if the real horror happened behind the camera? In the hidden archives of Hollywood, buried beneath decades of industry myths and forgotten scandals, there exists a film so reckless, so unbelievable, that many people still struggle to understand how it was ever allowed to happen. A production where the line between filmmaking and survival disappeared. A movie that left a trail of injuries, bloodshed, fear, and chaos unlike anything the entertainment industry had ever seen. This is not just another cursed movie story. This is the case file of Roar. When people discuss the most cursed films ever made, certain names always emerge. Stories of mysterious deaths, strange accidents, unexplained coincidences, and productions allegedly haunted by forces nobody can fully explain. These legends have become part of cinema's dark folklore. But hidden among them is a film whose nightmare wasn't based on rumors. The danger was real. The screams were real. The attacks were real. Imagine stepping onto a movie set surrounded not by trained special effects, not by controlled stunts, but by dozens of full-grown lions, tigers, leopards, and other apex predators roaming freely. No computer-generated imagery. No safety barriers capable of guaranteeing protection. No proven blueprint for what was about to unfold. Now imagine that the people standing among those animals were not anonymous stunt performers. They were the director, the cast, the crew, entire families. And what followed would become one of the most shocking production disasters ever documented. For years, fragments of the story circulated like urban legends. Stories of actors being mauled, crew members rushed to hospitals, life-threatening injuries hidden behind promotional material, financial ruin, delays that stretched for years, a project that seemed determined to destroy itself and everyone involved with it. But how much of the legend is true? How many people were actually injured? Why did nobody shut the production down? And why does the finished film feel less like a movie and more like evidence recovered from a catastrophe? Tonight, we're opening the forbidden file. We're examining the production records, eyewitness accounts, behind-the-scenes footage, and the disturbing chain of events that transformed an ambitious dream into what many consider the most dangerous film production in cinematic history. Because the deeper you dig into the story of Roar, the more one unsettling question begins to emerge. Was this simply reckless filmmaking? Or was something far darker unfolding behind the scenes? And before we unlock the first page of this forbidden case file, take a moment to become part of the investigation. If you're fascinated by cursed movies, hidden Hollywood secrets, unexplained production disasters, and the dark stories lurking behind the films we thought we knew, make sure to leave a like on this video. It may seem like a small action, but it helps keep these forgotten stories alive and allows more people to discover the mysteries buried beneath cinema history. And I want to hear your thoughts before we go any deeper. Do you believe some movies are genuinely cursed? Or do you think every so-called curse can eventually be explained by coincidence, human error, and bad decisions? Leave your answer in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious to see where you stand on that question. And if this is your first time entering the Shadow Reel archives, subscribe to the channel and join us as we uncover the forbidden stories, disturbing mysteries, and hidden truths that most people never see behind the screen. Because tonight's investigation is only the latest chapter in a much larger collection of cinematic case files. And what we're about to uncover inside the story of Roar may be one of the most disturbing of them all. To understand how this nightmare began, we have to go back to the moment when an ambitious dream first started taking shape. The dream that should never have been attempted. To understand how one of the most dangerous productions in cinema history ever became a reality, we need to step into a moment when the nightmare had not yet begun. A time before the injuries, before the blood, before the headlines, before Roar earned its reputation as one of the most cursed movies ever made. Because every disaster starts as a dream. And in this case, it was a dream so ambitious, so idealistic, and so disconnected from ordinary reality that it almost feels impossible to believe. The story begins with a fascinating contradiction. The people behind Roar were not trying to create a horror movie. They were not chasing controversy. They were not attempting to manufacture danger for publicity. In fact, the original vision was built around a message of harmony between humans and animals. A message about coexistence, trust, and breaking down the barriers of fear. On paper, it sounded inspiring. In reality, it would become one of the most reckless experiments Hollywood had ever witnessed. As the investigation records show, the project slowly evolved around an idea that many people initially considered extraordinary. What if a film could be made using real big cats instead of trained stand-ins, mechanical effects, or cinematic tricks? What if audiences could witness genuine interactions between humans and lions? Not simulated danger, real danger. At first glance, that concept carries a strange kind of appeal. There is something mesmerizing about seeing humans standing beside apex predators. It awakens something ancient inside us, a mixture of awe and fear, curiosity and instinct, the same feeling that has fueled myths, legends, forbidden stories, and mysterious encounters throughout human history. But there was one problem. Nature does not negotiate. A lion does not understand scripts. A tiger does not care about production schedules. And a predator cannot be convinced that a movie set is different from the wild. Yet despite those obvious realities, the dream continued to grow. What makes this chapter of the story so unsettling is that nobody involved appeared to believe they were walking toward disaster. Quite the opposite. The atmosphere surrounding the project was filled with optimism, confidence, conviction. There was a genuine belief that trust could overcome risk, that familiarity could replace caution, that years spent around these animals somehow changed the fundamental rules governing their behavior. And this is where the story starts becoming less about filmmaking and more about human nature itself. Because history is filled with examples of people who became convinced they had mastered forces far greater than themselves. Again and again, we encounter the same pattern. A powerful idea emerges. Warnings are ignored. Confidence grows. Limits begin to disappear. And eventually, reality arrives to collect its debt. Looking back now, with the benefit of hindsight, many of the warning signs seem obvious, almost impossible to miss. But inside the dream itself, those signs were easier to dismiss. Every successful interaction reinforced the belief that the impossible could be achieved. Every day without catastrophe became evidence that catastrophe would never come. That illusion would become one of the most dangerous elements of the entire production. Because while the filmmakers were chasing a vision unlike anything cinema had ever seen, something else was quietly taking shape in the background. A ticking clock. A hidden threat, a disaster waiting for the exact moment when confidence became greater than caution. And when that moment finally arrived, the consequences would shock Hollywood, leave countless people injured, and transform Roar from an ambitious passion project into a permanent entry in the archive of cinema's darkest production nightmares. As we continue opening this forbidden case file, you'll discover how the growing population of lions, tigers, and other predators slowly transformed a dream into something nobody could fully control. And if you've ever seen a situation where confidence blinded people to danger, comment the word warning below. Because the next chapter reveals the moment when the animals stopped being part of the dream and started taking control of the story. As we continue examining the evidence surrounding Roar, one fact becomes increasingly difficult to ignore. The production wasn't moving toward danger. It was already living inside it. The dream had become reality, and reality was far more unpredictable than anyone had anticipated. What makes this chapter so fascinating and so disturbing is that the people involved were not acting like individuals trapped inside a nightmare. In many ways, they were still pursuing the original vision with remarkable determination. The project continued to grow. The animals remained at the center of everything. The belief that this unprecedented experiment could succeed was still alive. But beneath that optimism, the foundation was beginning to crack. Because every dream depends on a simple assumption. The assumption that tomorrow will behave like yesterday. And on a production built around dozens of massive predators, that assumption was extraordinarily fragile. The more the animals became integrated into daily life, the more the illusion of control strengthened. Familiarity created confidence. Confidence reduced caution. Reduced caution increased exposure. And increased exposure multiplied risk. It was a cycle that few people seemed willing to acknowledge while it was unfolding. Looking back now, it's almost impossible not to feel a sense of inevitability. Not because anyone wanted disaster, not because anyone expected disaster, but because the conditions for disaster were quietly accumulating day after day. Imagine standing inside a room filled with lions. Nothing happens. The next day, nothing happens again. A week passes, still nothing. Eventually, your brain begins rewriting the story. The danger feels smaller than it actually is. The risk seems manageable. The extraordinary becomes routine. Yet the reality remains unchanged. The animals have not adapted to human expectations. Humans have adapted to the animals. And that difference would prove critical. As reports from the production reveal, there were already moments that hinted at the fragile nature of the entire operation. Unpredictable behavior, tense encounters, situations that served as reminders that instinct can never be fully negotiated. These moments didn't necessarily stop the project. If anything, they often reinforced a belief that the team could continue navigating the chaos. But every warning carries a hidden question. How many times can you gamble with probability before probability finally wins? That question hangs over the entire story of Roar. Because this wasn't simply a movie production anymore. It was becoming a real-world experiment in the limits of human confidence. An experiment with no precedent, no roadmap, no safety model that could truly account for what was happening. And perhaps that's why the story continues to captivate people decades later. On the surface, it's a tale about filmmaking. But underneath, it's about something much deeper. It's about ambition, belief, risk, the powerful human tendency to convince ourselves that we can master forces that ultimately answer to their own rules. That's what makes this file so important within our investigation of the most cursed movies ever made. Because before the injuries made headlines, before the terrifying footage emerged, before the production became infamous throughout Hollywood, there was simply a dream that many people considered visionary, a dream that others considered reckless, a dream that, with every passing day, drifted further away from the world of cinema and closer to something resembling an uncontrolled survival experiment. And as this Forbidden Case file moves into its next stage, we're about to discover what happens when that experiment collides with reality. Because the era of warnings is coming to an end, the era of consequences is about to begin. And once the first major incidents occur, there will be no turning back. The dream that should never have been attempted has now been set in motion. What follows next will transform Roar from an ambitious project into one of the most shocking production disasters ever recorded in cinematic history. And that's where our investigation takes a far darker turn. the day the predators took control. As this investigation entered its final stage, I stopped looking at Roar as a movie and started examining it as a case file. And that's when the most disturbing evidence began to emerge. The deeper I went into production records, behind-the-scenes footage, interviews, and eyewitness accounts from the filming period between the 1970s and the early 1980s, the more impossible the story became to ignore. What initially appeared to be an ambitious Hollywood experiment gradually revealed itself as a production spiraling into chaos. At the center of it all was director Noel Marshall, the man who believed it was possible to create a film featuring dozens of real lions and other large predators interacting directly with actors. Not stunt doubles, not special effects. Real people, real animals. The result was unlike anything Hollywood had ever seen, and the consequences were devastating. One of the most shocking discoveries in the archive concerns cinematographer Jan de Bont, who would later become famous for directing films such as Speed. During production, a lion attacked him, resulting in severe scalp injuries. Reports indicate that he required well over 100 stitches. Looking at the footage and photographs from the period, it's difficult to comprehend how he survived without even more catastrophic damage. But Jan de Bont was far from the only victim. The records reveal that Noel Marshall himself suffered multiple injuries throughout the production. At various points, he was bitten, scratched, and injured by the very animals he believed could coexist safely with the cast and crew. Yet the production continued. Then there was actress Tippi Hedren, one of the film's central figures. During filming, she suffered injuries after encounters with the animals. Years later, she would openly acknowledge the extreme risks involved in the project and express concerns about the dangerous conditions under which the film was made. The evidence becomes even more unsettling when examining what happened to Melanie Griffith, who participated in the production while still very young. During one incident, she suffered facial injuries severe enough to require reconstructive surgery. Imagine arriving on a film set expecting to make cinematic history and leaving with injuries that would alter your appearance. And then there are the countless incidents that never became as famous. Moments captured in production notes, crew testimonies, near disasters, close calls, lions suddenly lunging, predators asserting dominance, actors trying to remain in character while instinct screamed at them to run. What makes the footage so unsettling today is knowing that many of the reactions visible on screen are genuine. The tension isn't acting. The fear isn't always performance. In some scenes, the people you are watching are reacting to situations that could become dangerous within seconds. By the time Roar was finally released in 1981 after years of delays and setbacks, the film had already earned a reputation unlike any other production in Hollywood history. Estimates frequently cited in reports suggest that dozens of cast and crew members suffered injuries during the making of the movie. And as I closed the final documents in this shadow reel investigation, one conclusion became impossible to avoid. The greatest mystery of Roar is not how the film was made. It's how it was finished. This was not a haunted production in the traditional sense. There were no demons, no cursed artifacts, no supernatural legends lurking in the shadows. Instead, there was something arguably more frightening. A dream so powerful that it convinced intelligent people to walk willingly into extraordinary danger. And that danger left its mark on everyone involved, which is why Roar deserves its place among the most cursed movies ever made. Not because of what might have been hiding in the darkness, but because the threat was visible the entire time. This concludes the shadow reel investigation. Case file closed. But some stories never truly stay buried, and some archives are locked away for a reason. Every file has a story. Some should never be opened. We've reached the end of today's investigation. The files of the most cursed movies ever made cluster are closed. Questions remain. And somewhere in the forgotten archives of Hollywood, another story awaits. Every file has a story. Some should never be opened.